everyone! Mama Moss here, better known as Moss in the WWD community. Thank you so much for watching my Alamo class video. I had a blast teaching everyone the profile I wrote, and I look forward to seeing more Alamos out there on the map. Alamo is part of our Walking with Dinosaurs roster on Beasts of Bermuda. It's a game where you play as a dinosaur. How cool is that? If you'd like to give it a try, come join our community through the link in the description below. And of course, be sure to catch me live at 7:30 p.m. EDT every day except on Mondays. Those links can also be found in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye! As a quick aside, I accidentally had my OBS not set to capture in-game noises. Whoops! So, someone has generously given me audio from the class in-game. So, big shout out to Folklore. Thank you so much. Hopefully that doesn't completely take away from the value of what you see in this video, because you still get my voice, which is in real time. It's just the audio might be a little bit off. Thanks again, and the next video will have audio. I pinky promise. Good. Good, that's good. Alright, so just real quick, if you guys have any background sounds going on that might be picked up, you might want to put yourself to push to talk. It's all good, I understand. Push to talk is a-okay. You guys are free to ask questions in voice chat. I recommend eating what you can here if you want. Just remember where you guys are going to be grouping up later. Actually, let me double check my mic real quick. Alright. We can, let's see, I think we have the majority in here, which is amazing! Welcome everyone! So this is going to be recorded, you know, for prosperity's sake. There will be 2 editions of this. There will be raw footage, which will be posted on YouTube. It'll probably be about 2 hours long that you can peruse at your leisure. It'll contain everything and anything, and then there will be an edited video coming out thereafter that will be more condensed. So you get everything in the raw, and then you get highlights in the condensed, and it just depends on how much time you have. Wow, I think we've got about 3 minutes. Seems everyone's already grouped up. Nice, very nice. Okay, I'm going to show you real quick the distance between the males and the females, because I think that is probably the most important thing out there. You see that distance right there? You see how it's like 2 tail lengths? Magnifique. Well done. That's what you need. It comes down to the fact that if you don't have an intermediate zone between the males and females, you cannot mate. So that's why you need that space. Mating is done only during migration. It is done on the go. You know, you got things, places to be, things to eat, trees, you know, lots of things. So you just do that. So you want that intermediate. And once again, just a reminder for the class, please keep group chat to a minimum. You are allowed to ask questions in group chat, in the class time chat, in Discord, although I would recommend group chat instead, because then I can see it. And you can ask questions in voice chat. If you're not able to keep up, the herd's gonna have to just keep moving, you know? The life of an Apato, of an Alamo, excuse me, is one of perpetual movement. Alright, let's see. I think we're about ready to go, so why don't we just get started. I want to teach you guys the most important tool you'll have in your toolkit. It's called the number 6. Alright, hit it. Hit number 6. Do it. Do it. Wow! Way to go! If you want to keep moving in one direction, hit P. Hey, now remember, please do keep in mind I have asked for voice, oh, excuse me. I have asked for group chat to be kept to a minimum. Alright. Now remember, it's not the boys who set the pace, it is the girls. If the boys get too close, they can't bum. They can't mate. There will be no mating that happens. Unlike Ankies, that's actually a great question. So TJ Homeboy asked, will we get clarification on OK tail whipping in the female group? Great question. So unlike Ankies who just beat the crap out of each other with, you know, on accident, Alamos are a bit more conscientious about who they're around. So you might not whip someone right next to you because you're not intelligent, but you're socially intelligent. So sheep are socially intelligent, but I wouldn't ask them to do math problems, if that makes sense. If you hit P, it keeps you moving in one direction as you are auto-walking, and it looks great. Most of your time is going to be spent walking as an Alamo, because that's just what you do. Yeah, if you hold space. Now, once again, I'm going to ask you to not do that in group chat, if that's alright. If you keep group chat to a minimum, and leave it for questions only. Thank you. Now, of course, when it comes to mating, that happens while we're on the go. You might not necessarily walk. Well, you know, you do a mix of sprinting, maybe up hills, but you want to generally just walk. But for mating frenzies, it gets a little crazy. Yes, 0.8s are subadults, and that means they are able to mate. And that is completely fine. So, when the time to mate comes, females will begin to drop back into that intermediate zone, which is why it's necessary. Yes, yeah, absolutely. You can do so much. Like maybe you're wagging your tail like a dog. I know it's common to say like, oh, these are elephants and they wouldn't do that. No, these are Alamos. Alamos, not elephants. That's why they got long necks, not long noses. Duh. But yes, you can use anything. I know a variety of tail language can be expressed like, I'm frustrated, so you might hold Q like you're chewing, like you're angry. And then you might lash your tail as well at the same time. And that can communicate like, I'm frustrated. Or maybe you 3-call and you lash your tail like, you're really angry. I haven't had a chance to look at any male skins, but if you have questions, reach out to your nearest staff member. Now, ladies, if you're feeling like, oh man, you know what? I'm in the mood for love. This is when you slow your pace. You start to 2-call a ton. Like 2-call, you know, who's whipping? But you start to 2-call, you're like, hey boys, hey. Like you're catcalling the males. And now males, when that happens, that's your invitation to start rushing up into that intermediate zone. And when one lady moves back, other ladies can move back as well. Alright, Yumi, take us to Great Lake. I'm gonna do an overhead of the intermediate zone if that's alright. You know where Great Lake is? You just follow this shore. I trust you. Go on. Godspeed. Alright, so we got our first lady in that intermediate zone. Sweet Colin. Boys, you start running. She's saying, hey there, boys. Hey! What you want to do is you want to push and shove your way into her heart. And you can do that by bulldozing over your competition, whipping them away, anything to get to that one girl. When you get to her side, she will invite you to mate. So what you can do is, since they mate on the go, hit 6, invite to mate through the tab menu, and you'll keep walking. But boys, the thing is, if you get one girl impressed, man, what does that mean? You might not have the chance to mate with someone else. So you gotta weigh your options. Do you seal the deal right then and there? Because she's still considering you. You caught her. Or potentially risk not having any more chance to meet. Moss note. Remember to mate during the day. An exception was made for this class, but you are diurnal. Oh, well, is there a set time? Let's see. I think there is. See, we are diurnal. I'm willing to make an exception for the purposes of this class, if that makes sense. So normally I would not advise mating during the night, but this is, like you said, it's nighttime. But we only have about 2 hours. So for now, it's okay. Like I said, just for the purposes of the class. If 2 males are of the same speed, you'll want to tail whip each other. So you'll be trying to push them away. You'll be racing side by side and whipping each other. Now, a good way for a female to slow down, in case you were wondering, into that intermediate zone, is to, you can backspace a little bit. So you hit control, back up a little. You can hit the space bar to start walking really slow. Completely up to you. Nice work, guys. Thanks, Yumi. Now remember, keep your, oh shoot, I forgot to announce the grace period. My bad, guys, sorry about that. You can mate on any ground, as long as you're moving and it's in the intermediate zone. That's completely fine. No, that's one thing. You cannot, under the current rule set, you cannot mate with more than 1 male. You can only mate with 1 guy. That is actually a great question. And it's, like, oh, well, that makes sense. Like, you want to be a bit more considerate with your eggs. And you can mate up to 3 times as Apatos. And remember, this is just for this class that we're doing it during the night. Every other time, it's diurnal. Well, if they're in the middle, Wyoming, it's probably because they are wanting to mate. You can do it based off of their behavior, or based off of what they look like. but you're gonna have to take that risk. You know, maybe it is a guy, and he just looks like a girl, and all your sweet talking is, you know, for naught. It's why you gotta be discerning. And of course, once mating is concluded, you want to speed back up, and then the differentiation between the two sections of the herd dissipates. Or excuse me, it reforms. What's English? And so a great question that I always get about Alamo is, what if there's a guy and he's in my grill and I really just want him out of it? You know, he's in the intermediate zone and he shouldn't be, and no one's wanting to mate. That's when you 3-call, you warn him because he's in the space that he's not supposed to be. And then you go ahead and you start whipping. When they move to back up, they'll be good. They're good to go. Now, as we're auto walking, does anyone have any questions thus far that they have? Maybe something that they saw in the profile, maybe something that they were like, well, that doesn't make sense. Any clarifications? Anything I can do for you? Okay, 2 very good questions. So, first, Mercy Riala asks, are you allowed to abort damaged eggs like if a male hits you while pregnant? Not necessarily, it depends, because that's still in your timer. So you will have to wait your timer. So like, yes, you can, but ultimately you will have to wait. Gay pairs. So, as you might have noticed in the profile, it says that males can get real close with each other if they have a rapport. If they've spent many seasons together, maybe they're good friends, stuff like that. If that happens, you know, you can swing it that way as well. And then females, of course, are more likely to be close anyways because of their social nature. Ultimately, you can have that aspect in the profile so long as the profile allows it. So, for example, Tyrannosaurus Rex, you probably can't do that because males will eat each other and females will eat each other. And that's no fun. Yes, when you're not mating or when you're not interested in mating, you're more likely to want to make sure that there's that differentiation. And remember, it's 2 tail lengths. If the boys are coming too close, you stop at the back and you 3-call, and they have to wait. And if they don't, or if they get really pushy, then they can be expelled from the herd. And I saw actually a really good comment regarding size and matriarch. The matriarch, her qualifications are not defined in profile for one very good reason, and that's to allow pretty much anyone who has the confidence rather than merits. So you could have someone who's maybe not the biggest, but she's definitely the most confident. Then that could be the matriarch. And the matriarch can also rotate as well. It's just whoever's leading at that point in time. Maybe it's someone who's related to everyone or something like that. Or maybe she's just the biggest. That could be up to you guys. If you can't catch up to the girls, what do you mean? Like you're just out of stamina. You're having issues keeping pace or something like that. Ah, okay, well, then you hold the line then. If they're in your space, if they're too close, you can try racing away, you can do all that stuff, but if you're done, then you're done. You want to get back to the ladies, because the males are just a little too pushy. They're not good company. Now we're coming up at a rest stop. Ladies, it's at this point that your male, who's going to designate where you're going to put your eggs, is going to pull away from the group, maybe with you as well. Up until this point, you're free to eat, but as soon as he designates where the grove is, you'll want to guard it. So that means no eating and no drinking. He'll go off, he'll eat his fill, and then once you lay your eggs, you're gone. So that could be if the male's there or if he's not there. If he's not there, it's oh well. You know, you've done your part. Instinct's telling you to vamoose. As for the rest of the herd, this is usually a time where the most social encounters, more profound social encounters might happen. You know, at these resting stops where water is plentiful and food's plentiful and all that good stuff. So at these rest stops, males and females tend to mingle and hang out a bit more. And this is usually where the baby smashing tends to happen. And of course, in those circumstances, it can be quite frustrating, you know, like, oh man, I spent so much time on that egg and now it's just a piece of meat on the side. Aw, geez. What the heck? But you have to detach yourself from that. You have to detach your human side of it and think more like a dinosaur. You know, like we have hippos, right? Hippos will kill rival competitor children. And when they do, the mother just goes back into heat. You gotta think of it like that. Less like, oh man, that's my baby, and more like, ah, well. Which is, it's always tough, you know, because you're like, oh, but I love my babies. You have to think of it as, these are survivors. They're walking, wandering survivors. If a kid's not gonna cut it, they're willing to bail on them. If a kid's not catching up or keeping up with the herd, you're willing to bail on them. If they're too weak, you bail on them. Now, if there's a mosa and it's a lone mosa, you can tell it you don't like it in your space. You can give it a nice warning bellow, maybe like a 1 call, like get out of here, and then follow up with a 3 call for personal space. But do keep in mind that as soon as they do leave your personal space, you don't want to remain aggro to them unless they keep coming back. Alright, now boys, for your grove, this is important. You need to prove that not only you've got the speed, but you got the dexterity. To do that, you need to make sure that your grove is nice, because she will be grabbing those trees once those eggs hatch and probably feeding it to the kids. And obviously if those trees are uprooted, then she can't feed that to anyone. You potentially could. I mean, like, you can technically challenge for anything, but why should you? You know, like, at that point, you're just trying to keep the grove site unharmed, so that 1, the eggs are hidden, and 2, you know, she has food for the kids after. And fighting can potentially lead to it being, you know, disturbed. And that leaves for hungry kids. Does anyone have any other questions? you know, you sometimes might have to go out a ways. That's ultimately the gamble that you have. And just so you know, please do not talk in group chat. I'm gonna start being a little angry. I don't want to be angry. You're gonna want to give him a chance because obviously he was fast enough, but if he uproots his trees, like whether by shifting into them or maybe he grabs them by mistake, you can obviously, you know, you can just drop the eggs and bail. Yes, well, you can make a nesting post whenever. You know, maybe when you mated, maybe it's when you drop the eggs. That's up to you. I like to do it when the eggs are dropped or about to drop because, you know, it makes sure that I actually have stuff for people to take. That's personal preference. You're just limited to the amount of mating you can do within your mating timer, which is 3 times, which is a lot. That's a lot of eggs, potentially. Now for females, you know, this is a great opportunity when there's nesting and all that stuff, and you're not nesting, excuse me, to interact with others and to socialize. You know, you have this great RP element, which is your neck. You can bring it around, you can shift it, you have a lot of mobility, surprisingly, with it. And you also have your teeth. So if you were to double tap Q as if you're grabbing something, you can make it look like you're chewing. Maybe you're chewing out of frustration, maybe you're grabbing something, who knows. You can use this to actually groom your fellows. Hello, Casa, I'm coming for you. Casa and I, we might exchange a nice little neck swara, something like that, you know, to say like, hey, I know you. And then I'll chew on her neck to either get that hard to reach spot. Yeah, or graze, that's also a good point. There's a lot you can do. You know, it's not, there's the aisle where you could sniff and that'd be kind of neat, but you've got a lot of utility in the commands you can do here. Of course, you've got your calls, which are also helpful. One thing I really like is the mimicry aspect that you can do sometimes to say like, yes, I hear you, that's amazing, you're right, oh my gosh. It's kind of like when you're watching daytime television on a talk show maybe, and you know how the host will say one thing and then you might hear some repetition outside in the crowd. You do something like that as well. So ladies, while your male is coming back, it is your job to make sure that none of your herd mates eat where your grove is. And once males come back, it's his job. Okay, let's see. Dame Egg says, I once had a male eat my grove just before the eggs hatch. How would my female react? Well, she didn't see him eat. Like, you either did a bad job guarding it or you ate those trees because you couldn't handle yourself. So she will abandon those eggs. Shu says, does other females that didn't mate help raising the kids? They can. As per the rules, you know, females can guard and help defend any hatchlings or juveniles in the herd that is not part of their fear list. So, like, you know, if there's a megalo, they can be like, hey, get out of here. But if it's 2 apexes, they'll prefer themselves. But, you know, although you have that protective aspect and you can adopt, you might not want to. You know, it's not your responsibility. TJ Homeboy says, so do we guard before we lay or after? Before, if you're female, and then you leave as soon as you lay those eggs. If the male's not back, then uh-oh. Oh, if your male ate the grove, that's bad. You would not like him. That means he couldn't help himself. Gosh darn, men can't help themselves. They gotta prove that they can They're weathered, more or less. Because that is the life of an Apato, you know, you have to keep walking. That's all you gotta do. So Rai says, so what should unmated males be doing at a rest stop? You can socialize. You know, you might not be as social as your friends, you know, your female counterparts, but they will socialize with you as long as you're not too grumpy. This might also be a great part of where you build that rapport with your other males. You can soak your feet, which is another aspect of the profile. Here's a great thing. So if you see, like, you're a male, right? And you're bully. You love to bully. You like to push things out of your way if they're in your way. If they're not in your way, don't go out of your way to smack them. So bullying can be as easy as just one calling and moving into someone. You don't necessarily want to whip, you know, just in case. But you're not going to take no for an answer unless it's, like, not worth your time. Females, on the other hand, might go around obstacles rather than be, you know, point blank with them. They're gentle, but that does not necessarily mean they're willing to take a beating. They can still say, hey, that's mine, just to a lesser extent. Wild Wyoming says, but other appas are out for their own food, yeah, and will eat someone else's grove. They might do it by accident. I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to eat someone else's grove, but, you know, if it's food, food is food. Is shelter, Wira says, is shelter Apato realistic, like sheltering large herd from storm if sheltered Apatos aren't really near it? Are you referring to the talent tree? I mean, you could do that. There's nothing against it. Like, you know, if it's a female, yeah, sure, why not? If it's a male, yeah, sure, why not? Be mindful about group chat again. I love how you're soaking in the water, Daymeg. That's a great idea. Salsa Face says, should a female who has laid her egg stop guarding the nest area? Yes, that is no longer your responsibility. If your male's not there, oh well. He knows what he's signed up for. So, the question is, alright, so I'm a lady. I've laid my eggs. When do I go back? So first, your eggs are going to want to hatch. And second, you need to fill up on satiety. It used to be full hunger, not anymore. You need just a full green bar. If you have that full green bar, you can go back once your eggs have hatched. And when that happens, the male will let you collect the eggs. Now, males, this actually comes at an interesting point. You know, it's like, well, what if I'm out of food? What if the herd starts to move on? What if I start to get hunted? If you start to get hunted, or if the food is starting to run out, or the herd starts to move on, or mom just isn't around, you know, maybe she got, you know, you abandon the eggs. Doesn't matter if your best friend's in there. That egg, not your problem anymore. Once mom collects them, not your problem anymore. The rules let you defend your kids, but think about it. Why should you risk your neck for that? You got better things to do, like potentially chase after more females. Like, yes, you can, but the more danger you throw yourself into, the more likely you're gonna get hurt, or you're gonna get killed, or something like that. So it's important to weigh those risks. Please be mindful of group chat. Thank you. So, that does bring up a good point. What's a good way to indicate that there's danger? You can 1 call and 3 call and stomp, because we don't have a distress call. Usually I like to 1 call and stomp in the direction of danger. The profile lets you 1 call and whip, maybe 3 call and whip in the direction of danger. But the stomp really gets people's attention. And of course, if there's more than one, if it's a pair of apexes, the ladies don't like it. They will try and get away. Janny says, can juveniles that are unable to pick up be punted in the middle of the herd, or is that is considered unrealistic? It's on the juvenile. They gotta prove that they're worth it, that they're worth your time and investment, energy-wise. Like, yes, accidental punting happens. That's just Apato life, you know. We're here to walk, and if the kids get in the way, oh well. But you shouldn't be punting them with the purpose of helping them to keep up. That would be unrealistic. Yeah, no problem. Z, if you have the opportunity, could you add the class time roll onto Issa for me? Infinity Flower says, what would happen to a pre-.4 Appa baby if the herd moves before they are juvie? Do they go back to sleep? I mean, you can react to that however you want, but more or less, if you can't keep up, your mom's not going to want to take care of you. Like I said, the life of an Apato is very cruel. It's often short. If you get to adulthood, that's great. That means that you have survived the test of nature. Because most of the time, you're not going to. And that's just life. You're either going to get stomped by dad by accident. You're going to get stomped by mom by accident. You might get, like, flown into the air because someone tripped over you. You might not be able to keep up. So I'm also often asked, like, well, when do we determine when someone's a runt? When do we determine how someone should be perceived? When should I abandon them? I would classify runty behavior less so as birth order and more as a series of behavior. So like a pattern. Has the kid had trouble keeping up for a long time? Has the kid had difficulty, with predators? Do they always get targeted? Are they slow? Are they not eating? That sort of thing. If they have, then I would say, like, yeah, you know what? Abandon them. Because you don't want to jeopardize the rest of the brood. It's a shame if one kid dies, but multiple of your kids, that's like a lost generation. You don't want to do that. Okay, so Teparu asks, so we shouldn't punt babies to move them with the herd. No, you should not. That's not good. Don't do that. River asks, can a male abandon his grove when hungry/thirsty? It depends. Depends on what you would define as hungry/thirsty. If the herd's moving on because there's not enough food, then I would argue that you're probably hungry and thirsty. You ideally want to wait for the mom, because that is an investment. You have invested your time, energy, and your hunger/thirst to make sure that these kids live, at least to the point where mom comes and gets them. If mom doesn't come to get them, if you're not getting hunted, if you're starting to starve or dehydrate, I would say yes, then you would want to abandon, because it's clear maybe mom is not coming back. So I would say maybe not a quarter, maybe like around 20 food and 20 hunger. You want to get out of there, because you still want to give her a chance. Like, it can be hard sometimes, especially when we're in a class this size. It can be very difficult to get that food and hunger up. And of course, if you're getting hunted, you're like, no, screw that. I don't want to deal with that. This is my life. I can always have more kids. And ladies, I wouldn't hold it against dad or uncle or brother or cousin or whatever if your kids get smashed. The profile and the rules say that they have to be unattended. So like if you can't get there in time, that's kind of on the kid and maybe a little bit on you. But that's just, that's just business. It's definitely nothing personal. And males, you can also elect to chase the kids out as well. You don't necessarily need to squash them. Chasing out is also an option. Shoo, Janny, I love what you're doing. Good work. That is so cute. Nice job. A++. See me after class for extra credit. Alright, so recap. When does dad... Oh, hang on. Casa, yes. So if a male smashes my babies, am I allowed to deny him mating rights if I witnessed it? Why would you? That's a question. Like, why would you? Like, do we see in the wild when another male comes in, do we see the females deny them mating rights if he does successfully kill their kids? No. No, they tend to just mate again because the urge to reproduce is often greater than that of mourning. And that's the hard part of RP, especially on these more ancient creatures. We have to split ourselves from how we perceive our own thoughts and feelings on children, Like if my uncle came in and grabbed a kid and was like, boom, yeah, roasted, then we as people, as humans, would be like, oh, that's terrible, why would you do that, what's wrong with you? But that's just life. That's life for an Alamo. It's the circle of life. So you can mourn. Yes, you can absolutely mourn. That is correct, Casa. You can definitely grieve. But to some extent, you're partially to blame as well if your kid gets smashed because you weren't as attendant. And maybe that's on the kid too. Maybe the kid was runty. Maybe he's doing you a favor. Let's see. Mbug, how would a male go about pushing out an unrelated juvie? Great question. Lots of bully. You can run them over, 1 call, maybe 3 call as you do it. Just chase them. It's obviously a bit harder on Alamos because, Apatos are slow. But you basically bully them. What are you talking about, River, with that's a card? Could you clarify the question, please? Ah, Rye, that's actually an excellent question. So, Rye asks, I guess the question is if Alamos are more like lions or elephants. They're like neither. They may borrow the behavior from some of these creatures, these modern day creatures, but we cannot compare their behavior to that, like, oh, Alamo is elephant, or Alamo is rhino, or Alamo is lion. You can't. Alamo is Alamo. It is our best guesstimate for how things lived. We do our best. You can take inspiration from modern day creatures, definitely. Like, yes, you can grieve. You can see how these creatures might interact with their herd mates or something like that. But you have to see, like, we can't necessarily define them as elephant or rhino or anything like that. Yeah, no problem. I'm glad to help. And that's part of the reason why I say you can't necessarily, like, completely ostracize a guy that stomped kids, because that's Alamo. Alamo is stomping kids. The profile is designed to have that high infant mortality rate. Like, that's just life. If it's not him smashing the kids, it might be you. You might very well be sending that kid to its death, by refusing it care if it's not strong enough. We're socially intelligent, but in that intelligence we can recognize that there is a danger to having a weak link. Alright, Mercy Reala says, if a clutch fails with the current male, would the female be less likely to breed them again? That depends. Females determine fitness through the male being able to catch up. So if they're able to catch up, they're obviously fit enough. If they are dexterous enough to maintain the grove, they're obviously fit enough. So it could be one of many factors. So Wilbur says, some Apatos went to get food really far. They don't render anymore. Shouldn't they leave group, or today's exception from the rule? Great question. So obviously we do have some exceptions to today, you know, with mating at night and that sort of thing. But if they wander too far, they'll probably want to leave group and then try and find us again. Since we're in one area, that should be easy enough. You know, we're not moving anywhere as it currently stands, but it's something to consider. And you do need to be a little honest, you know, like it's like, no, I'm in render, and you're like, you're squinting your eyes and all that stuff. I'm in line of sight, you can see me. For some people, they might very well be in render range because Bob has the option to have an infinite render range. So it ultimately depends on your computers. Alright, River asks, can a male kill one of the unrelated offspring out of jealousy? I mean, the very fact that he's killing the offspring is somewhat out of jealousy. You know, he's jealous that he didn't get the girl. That doesn't guarantee he'll get the girl, but it does show that he's, you know, he's got that pent-up male rage, if that makes sense. I wouldn't necessarily say it's jealousy, because that brings into the question of, can Alamos be jealous? At what point do creatures become jealous? Alright, Infinity Flower says, what happens if a female has multiple kids and a male wants to breed with the female? Does he kill all of the kids? Well, if you have kids still, you are still ineligible. So yeah, he would probably have to get rid of all the competition, if I remember correctly. And that's as per the mating rules. So there are certain requirements that allow you to nest again. And that would be, you know, like all your kids are dead. More or less. There's like 4. Like they're no longer in group, they logged out, they hit a certain age, that sort of thing. But yes, if you've still got kids, you're still invested in nurturing them and taking care of them. Alright, now I'm seeing some eggs without people in them. Did we fan out the eggs a little bit? I've been so busy teaching that I forgot to do a little post. Or I left it more to you guys to do. Does anyone not have children? Issa asks, what situation is it okay to smack people? I know tail whipping is a big part of the profile, but I'm curious. Great question. So if you're just talking, you know how sometimes when you talk, your hands move around? It wouldn't necessarily be socially acceptable to have your hands like slapping the person you're talking to. So that's that social intelligence. That's where you're like, okay, I'm not gonna whip my tail to provide an exclamation or more communication if someone's right next to me. If I'm gonna hit them, I'm not gonna do it. If you have someone in your space, you can absolutely tail whip them if you don't want them there. But you should warn them first. Give them a 3 call, give them a chance to get out of there, and then do it that way. Alright, obviously another thing to do is if you're not around anyone, you can tail whip. Totally. If you tail whip someone by accident, don't panic. Don't panic. Accidents happen. Just don't keep hitting them. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you can accidentally hit someone in the head or the face once, but more than that, it's gonna get a little fishy. All right, Z says, what if your egg hasn't hatched, but you are or were full? You'll keep waiting. If nothing hatches, that's that. You know, it's just bad. It's bad egg. Let's see. If you're interested in exploring that juvenile side of the profile, I would welcome it, because this is probably going to be the best opportunity to do so. Yes, you can absolutely graze on glass. Graze on glass. Graze on grass. Yes. I would not recommend grazing on glass because that will hurt your mouth. If it has been 15 minutes or it's not your own egg, go for it. Absolutely. Take an egg. I dare ya. I double dog dare ya. One thing I like to do on these big creatures, and it's a little bit different, you know, from the aisle where there's no collision box, but if you brush along each other's sides, ooh, that's good. Look at that. That's right, look at us, Toast. Look at us. We're brushing each other's side. It means we're friends. Another thing you can do to make sure that, you know, you show your friendship. All right, here, Toast. Let me back up. Hang on just a second. We can look into each other's eyes and think of the future. Yeah, like that, you know, just, ooh, yeah. Nicely done. Good work. Great job. All right, does anyone have any other questions? I love these questions you guys are coming up with, by the way. They're really good. If not, then I can definitely think of some pop quizzes. Ooh, okay, come up with questions or pop quiz. Oh, TJ Homeboy has saved you all. All right, TJ Homeboy says, what does the herd do if food runs out and we still have hatchlings? You move on. The herd, you know, the focus is to make sure the hatchlings have a great chance of survival, but you don't want to jeopardize the majority. So the rule in an Alamo's life is majority over single person. All right, Z, can you get Frosty Lass a class time roll, please? Dame Egg says, do you recommend messy eating? Yes, definitely messy eat. But these things don't have table manners. They don't have thumbs. TJ Homeboy says, would the mother hold back or abandon them? Ah, great question. So she will give them a chance to keep up. If they can't, that's that. You know, they tried. You do want to give them a chance, and if they squander that chance, that's on them, not on you. Salsa Face 1 asks, does the mother go grab the egg or wait for the child to hatch? Wait for the kid to hatch. You should not be anywhere near that egg until it hatches as the woman. As the mama. Infinity Flower asks, I mentioned that I took an egg because is there... Nope. If you're already in the VC, you're good. You're good to go. The rule is just to make sure that those who are just joining us can come and join. Bless you. Alright, time to pick on some people. Wira, that's right, I'm looking at you. Rai is your friend. How should you greet them? You can act it out, or... Oh yeah, act it out, do it. Oh man, look at this. Nice, good work. Nicely done. Yeah, absolutely, that's a great way. And Rai would reciprocate. River asks, can the mother pick up her child? I mean, the child must have weighed a ton. The game mechanics let you do it, so you can. But obviously there will come a time where the baby must walk on their own. And if mom can't help them keep up, then that is that. Salsa Face 1 asks, would the mother abandon the child if the herd is moving? She gives them an opportunity to catch up. So that's the name of the game. You know, you give them a chance. They get a chance to prove themselves. And if they fail, then that is that. No ifs, ands, or buts. And remember, once again, I say that it's a series of behaviors. It's not a one-time like, you're slow, get out of here. Or, oh, you hatched last, get out of here. It's a series. So that could be like, he's really slow all the time, or maybe he's AFK all the time. Then you can start abandoning. And to abandon, you would just ignore them. You can start really punting them if they aren't taking a hint. But definitely 3 call first, just to give them a chance. Alright, Frosty Last says, in the reproduction section, it says the male will abandon the children if the female fails to collect. Around what time would that be? I would say that's around the time the herd starts to move on. Or if he gets too hungry or thirsty. I said about 20 food and about 20 water is when, he's like way too hungry or thirsty. Because, it takes a while. We're slow. Give him a chance. Dame Egg says, Janie says, what if the person refuses to leave group after being abandoned? Well, they're still in the herd. You're just not taking care of them, which is already putting them in a disadvantage. You refuse to protect them. You'll let them, you'll let harm befall them. You just won't go out, you won't go out of your way. Obviously, you can kick them from group. I wouldn't recommend it though, because they're still part of the herd. They're like a distraction, it's like, oh, okay, well if I'm not giving it care, then obviously that gives me and my kids a chance to get away if need be. Dame Egg says, are Alamo females okay to adopt? Yeah, you can adopt. You just might not care about it as much as if it was your own, because at the end of the day, you're focused on yourself. Like, you're number one. Janie says, yeah, but like when they are out of render, but they still refuse. Oh, well, at that point, you can tell them. And if they don't, then I would probably take more aggressive action. Wira says, is taking a lot of trees in mouth, like 5 to 8, even if head is down, acceptable behavior? I know it's not really realistic, but it happens a lot, mostly feed. I'd say, there's a lot of things in this game, mechanic-wise, that, is hard to do and hard to handle. Carrying trees, maybe you can use that as a messy eating example. Like, you use it to make sure that you drop it as soon as you pick it up, or you're carrying it to a specific location. I would not use the tree method to keep your head down, because you can do that through different ways, like just lower your camera, hit P, move forward. Like, that looks cool. Just do that. No trees required. Save the forest. Infinity Flower says, 2 males caught up to me at the same time. How would a female choose between them? The males will have to duel each other. So they'll have to start, that means they have equal speed, and they should start whipping the hell out of each other. You gotta determine who's boss, who's the quickest. Great questions, great questions. Infinity Flyer says, but I was in between them. They better not whip. LOL, female would scoot then. And what if a third male came to my female? Well, that's unfortunately the flummox of the situation, isn't it? You have to decide to some extent, because obviously if they're whipping you, what the heck? They shouldn't be whipping you. You can tell them that you're angry about that, maybe 3-call them. But if the males are so focused on dueling that they let another male go through, then he's not fit. Yeah, no problem. Rai says, interesting that speed is greater than strength. Wouldn't a female want the strongest male? Harder to tell, though. Speed and strength are not necessarily two distinct categories, is what I would say to that. Obviously, you can have those that are faster and those that are stronger, but ultimately, the girl wants someone who can keep up to her pace because of that migratory lifestyle. Wira says, as a female, can I refuse a male which is not camo colored and choosing only skin? Because that is what my Apato do. It is also will abandon babies which are not camo. You can, your Apato, your Alamo can determine what is or isn't fit. So it doesn't look a certain way. Like, yeah, you know, if it's a pattern of behavior, you give them a chance to quote unquote molt. And if they don't molt or they don't look a certain way, you can abandon them. It's much like if they were albino or something like that. For anything else, I would say that you are more focused on the speed aspect. So you want that guy to be fast, because that means fast babies. Mercy Riala says, will babies compete over food and their mother's attention? I could see that. I could see that happening. It makes sense. They're playful, you know. They like to romp around and have fun. But at the same time, there is that, you know, that hidden secret of, well, I need to prove I'm strong. So you can do that through ways that you might not think. Like, you know, maybe it's, oh yeah, I eat the food or push my way around. But ultimately, it's important to note that if you're playing a male Alamo and they're young, you want to act as if how a female would until about, you know, you can have tendencies towards aggression, but you want to go full swing, like maybe bullying, when you get around to 0.7, maybe 0.75 or so. And when you're 0.8, that's when you really want to go full aggro. At that point, that's when we talk about the bullying stuff, which is where, you know, you walk into smaller Alamos, 1-calling all the while. I would avoid tail whipping. You can 3-call. But if you 3-call, I would be mindful that you might attract someone's attention, aka mom. And nothing ruins the fun faster than parents getting involved. Gosh darn parents. Alright, juvenile/hashlings. Could you please tell me your growths at this time? Just let me know what your growths are. And you can have this communication in a herd, of course, you know, like, hey, I'm this growth. But only for the purposes of, like, you know, determining when we need to head out or when it's appropriate to. Still an 8.7. Alright. Nice. Alright. Another thing I like to do when I'm in Alamo, so you see these sticks, right? AKA old trees. I mean, look at them. They're useless, right? Not so fast. Not so fast. So the cool thing you can do with this is interact with it. So you can move your head up and down like the camera to make it look like you're scratching. Pretty neat, right? And you can also mix in stomps if you'd like, to make it really look like you're trying to get your shoulder or something like that. Like, it's that one spot you can't reach. Alright, Asuna says, if a male sees another male going for his offspring, can he threaten that male? I mean, you are allowed to protect your kids, as is in the rules, but why would you? That's not your responsibility. That's mom's responsibility. You got better things to do. It's ultimately mom's job to make sure her kids are in order and in line. Tepru says, would the male protect the offspring in general when something hunts it, or would he just leave them if the mom's gone? Once again, the male, once the kids are given to mom, not his problem. Like, he can, as per the rules, but for profile, he might be less inclined. River says, what about if the male have only one offspring that's living right now? Could he still threaten that male? Well, ultimately, if mom's there, he's passed him off, not his problem. He has more things to attend to. River says, so he's gonna have his only one offspring die by another male. That's just how cookie crumbles, unfortunately. I mean, it could be 1 or it could be 5, ultimately. Numbers doesn't matter, and that's why I say, like, you gotta remove yourself from the dinosaur, like the human aspect. And that in itself is difficult. Like, it's so easy to say, like, oh, cute baby. But to an Alamo, it'd be like, cute baby. Can they make it? Question mark, question mark. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Rura says, if someone is in egg and herd starts to migrate, can one of the parents take the egg? No, you'd probably just abandon it. So just to clarify what the Frosty Lass says, just to clarify with the kid thing, if a female has like 4 kids and one gets stomped and died, that starts a challenge timer, and if a male doesn't stomp the other 3, the timer's not reset, right? Yeah. I mean, you have kids you're caring for still. Remember, push to talk, please. Be mindful of the gore. I know it's like, whip him, but he does have gore. We should probably let him have it. That doesn't necessarily mean he can push us around with it, though, but it's important to be mindful. Oh, the forest is respawning. Hooray! It would start a timer, though, I'd say. Because you just don't want to go completely to-town ham on the poor guys. I have to clarify and ask what timer it would be. It's obviously not a hunting timer because Alamos can't hunt. It might be a challenge timer, or maybe there's no timer. That's one I'll clarify. Oh, M-Bug says, so one of my kids was abandoned by its mom. Would another female be able to gather up when they hatch and adopt? She can. She might not give it as much care as her true-born hatchlings. And of course, if it's her fearless, she won't defend it at all. Salsa Face says, would a female try to push a Rex off the drinking water so its child can drink? Great question. So think about it like this. You're a runner and you're afraid of gore, right? Does it have gore? Like, I don't want to necessarily give you a blanket statement like, yeah, sure, go for it. Because there are also caveats that can determine that. Like, is it minding its own business? Is it just in the way? Is it being threatening? No, we are not on the grace period. Our grace period ended a while ago, about 30 minutes ago. So I would say consider what's going on, because you don't want to have conflict. River says, can a female Apato drive herself in the pond with a Mosa just to have her offspring drink the pond? So you're asking, can a female... I see. So, first, I'm in a lot of messages at this time. So first, you would have to think about it. So I would say, why would she risk herself with a Mosa? Because obviously, you know, she might know it can't pick her up. Like, you might know it can't pick her up, but she doesn't know that. Alright, so I'm seeing that our trees are pretty much depleted. Matriarch is getting pretty hungry, so it might be that time. The matriarch's gonna gather her herd together, and this can be done through a series of 1 calls, maybe 2 calls. Alright, and we see some apexes as well, you know, pairs with gore, but that doesn't mean we're still like, let's be complacent. No, we don't like that. Alright, so with the herd forming back up, time to head on out. And this is where the true battle of the fittest begins. Like I said, the life of an Apato is often cruel and short, and this just lends itself to it. So the juvenile / hatchlings will be gathering up at this time more towards the center of the herd. In that creche. So a creche is like a nursery within the herd. Alright, and the males, of course, once we get into position, once we get ourselves situated, are gonna be 2 tail lengths away from the matriarchy. If you are not in render or line of sight, you are too far. River says, I know the profile said that males don't really protect his offsprings, but the rule allows it. It won't consider it a profile break. Rules supersede profile. If you can keep up, you can stay. That's the name of the game. You'd have to check Dynika's 65 asks. This isn't Apato really, it's Acros can't adopt, right? You will have to review the sponsor sheet because it depends if they're sponsors as well. Alright, High Lantern says, this is more of a personal question, but I'm 0.7, hence still juvie once hitting 0.8, I would head it back. You would stay as long as the females don't tell you to go. At 0.8, you would move back, but that's because you were bullying everyone. You're trying to ram them, and then you get chased back. Alright, that settles that. If it says no adoption, no adoption. Alright, at this time, males, you're going to want to head towards the back. The ladies are moving ahead, full steam. Remember, since we do have juveniles, we might walk a little slower, so just hold that space bar. If you're not racing to get a mate, you will not be falling into that intermediate zone. And pop quiz, if there's no intermediate zone, if the males are right on the females' tails, do they get the opportunity to mate? Well said, Janny. They cannot mate if there's no intermediate zone. So wait, does that mean that they can mate at these resting stops? Janny's on fire. Yes, that's right. They can't mate. They mate only on the move. So you might want to time your rest stops accordingly. River says, what if the male is hungry during migrate? Can he walk to the side of the females? I would keep your distance. You need to keep 2 tail lengths away. If it's not 2 tail lengths, then that's that. You're going to get yelled at. If it is, then you shouldn't be getting yelled at unless you're moving too far ahead. What I would say is if you are moving in a way that puts you beyond the pace to overcome or overtake the females, then you are going too fast and you should probably space it out. I would just say better safe than sorry. Move at, so you know, like a clock, right? It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I would stay between the 7 and the 4 position. So 4, 5, 6, 7, and and 8. So 8 through 4, 4 through 8. That position on a clock around the matriarchy. If you do that, you should have no worries. You just don't want to be on that 3 or above, or that 9 and above. Does that make sense? Alright, so do you have an analog, or not analog, I guess it is an analog, like a regular clock, like a clock with a clock face? You can Google a picture of it. Taproot says, would a male really care if the female's albino? I believe the rules say you should be shunning people who are albino. So yeah, you probably would care. Please keep questions pertinent to the class. Thank you. River says, so he can 3-call the albino female? Yes, because that's shunning. But remember, before you start going hog wild on that lady, give her a chance to get away. Issa says, if a juvie is abandoned, would it seek out a new mom or kind of vibe on its own? It can try. It can certainly try to maybe find a new home, find someone to take care of it. Also, be mindful of where the matriarch is. You don't want to pass in front of her for the most part. If she's moving back to mate, then yeah, go ahead, move in front of her, because she's probably passing the torch onto you. But you generally don't want to outpace her. You can always try and find a new mom, but it's up to her whether she will accept you. She might not. It's very likely. Like, if you were too weak for that blood relative, you're probably too weak for someone who doesn't have that bond. Does that make sense? Rivers says, how will other females supposed to react to a male 3 call and female that's albino? They should be shunning the albino female anyways. Infinity Flowers says, what if the mom left the kid behind because the mom couldn't pick them up when the herd moved on? They're just abandoned. If the kid can't keep up, then that's on them. It's the circle of life. If it's not your kid, why would you? Yes, she will generally. She might be motivated by hunger. She might be motivated by hunger, but for the most part, she will be very aware. Like, the creche is important. It's an important aspect of the herd. But if she has no kids of her own, she might be less inclined. Ellie says, if a herd moves on from the nesting site, should a female be waiting for her hatchling that is a mile behind the herd, or should she abandon it even if it's her only hatchling? She can abandon it, because if it's not strong enough to keep up with the herd, and that it's an unfortunate aspect, like, oh no, food ran out, but it's not strong enough. What do you mean run into ponds? Sodium chloride. See what I did there? And this might be where the messy eating comes out, so as you're eating, you might be like, ah, oh, grab it, drop it, yummy. Oh no, I overshot it. Z, could you give the people in the group the class time roll if they don't have it? I think it's Tara and Co. Yeah, thank you. And of course, while they're migrating, they're talking. You know, they're having conversation. They might not have the opportunity to rub up against each other or anything like that, but they are social. Flowers as gifts. I didn't, Dame Egg, I'm sorry, I didn't see that question. Could you retype it? And this is, when you're hitting 6, that helps us too if you hit the P, so you can just socialize, and you don't have to worry. You can look around, see what's happening, sniff. River says, would the female allow her dad to be near her offsprings? That depends on the female, I would say. Because obviously, why would the dad smash his own kids? But there's that chance. You know, there's always a chance that he kills his own kids. Or bullies them. Firewolf, please be mindful of group chat. We're trying to keep that only for questions. Dame Egg says, can socially inclined / intelligent herbivores give gifts of... Yeah, that makes sense to me. Absolutely. I mean, that makes sense. Like, why wouldn't you? It might not sway them for mating, but maybe it would give you, like, a chance to be friends with someone else. One thing I like to do on my lady is with her... please have push to talk. Thank you. One thing I like to do... Okay, one last time. Please have push to talk. Thank you. One thing I like to do with my girl is, if she has kids, she nestles them in with ferns. Like, how cute is that? She's trying to keep them warm. So you can do stuff like that, you know, think of creative ways to give gifts and to interact with those around you. The social intelligence part lets you have that creativity. I think at this point, I've said it enough times that I sound like a broken record, so I'm just gonna have to start booting people who don't do that. I'm sorry, like, it's just to make sure that we don't miss questions and we keep clutter to a minimum. And of course, you know, as the matriarch is walking, you can keep that, you know, you can be mindful, you can stop, you can look around, that sort of thing. You know, pretend like you're a scout leading a troop into unknown territory. It might be familiar to you, but there's always new dangers. Does anyone have any questions? Any clarifications I can give you? When I'm walking, you know, with the 6, I like to save my sprint for only when I'm about to push through trees. It kind of helps everyone keep pace. Ellie says, if a male sees an unrelated juvenile separated from the mothers, should he try to push the juvie out and 3-call at it, or can he just... That's up to you. But you need to make sure that that mother is absolutely away. And ultimately, if you're doing the smushing, it's up to you to make sure it's legal to smush. It's kind of like hunters. You know how I always say it's always up to you, the hunter, to do its due diligence and make sure the hunt's legal, because you determine the point in time of engagement. Much the same with child killing, you know? You determine when the yeeting will occur. So it's up to you to make sure it's alright to do. Frosty Lass says, I'm sorry if this has been asked before, but does pushing a juvie out mean pushing them out of the herd altogether? Yes. Yes, it does. That is an option to the polygamous rule. Obviously, it's like, kill, but also, you can consider pushing them out. It's one of the few options that you have with that polygamous rule. Hive Lantern says, when it comes to clipping, would it be realistic to lift your neck/head to avoid clipping through? Yes, you can do that. Obviously, when you have a creature as big as a Apato/Alamo, it can be very difficult to avoid clipping entirely. So just do your best to be considerate. Make sure you're not really doing it in combat to an excessive degree. It should be okay. Wild Wyoming says, I still don't understand the mating thing. If a female's in the middle but has a kid, I am ignoring her. She's not fertile. She won't accept your advances. But if you're right up next to her, then you're probably up in the matriarchy, and the patriarchy is too close. So make sure you're maintaining that 2 tail length space. And that's 2 1.2 tail lengths. If you are in whipping range, you are too close. And you should stop. And as always, so the priority of who sets the pace. Kids set the pace. Females set the pace. Males do not set the pace whatsoever. River says, this is a bit off topic. IDK, if this is still a thing, can scavenger grab baby Alamo that's under, if there's no rule for it, it's legal. You should look at the rules. They can 100% try and bite you though, but you know, to make you drop your kids. But little known fact, they will do no damage to you if you're grown up. Would you carry... Okay. Dinikus65 says, if the main group of females is farther ahead and a female with kid is starting to fall into the male herd, would they stop and keep them in front or go around? That would... If a female is falling behind because she's waiting for her kid, the kid might not be considered fit. And she might start to abandon them because her focus is the group. TJ Homeboy says, would we carry eggs? Profile-wise, no, you would not carry eggs. Salsa Face asked, what is our destination? That's for you to find out. Yumi, please keep group chat. Don't include that in group chat. That's last warning. I'm gonna start removing people. Sorry. Just how the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. Teperu says, if the mother abandons a kid, but the kid is still alive and manages on its own to survive, can the female still mate again, or is she still on? If she abandons it, it's on her kid. She stopped care for it. Mercy Riala says, what do we do if our mother logs out? Well, you're on your own. You can see if you can get adopted, but that's entirely up to the other females. Infinity Flower says the kid equals juvie or hatchling. Yes. If it's considered less than subadult, that's just me saying both. My apologies. Thank you for clarifying. Unfit is just, am I able to keep up? Can I keep moving? Will I survive? And it's quite possible that even if you get abandoned, you will live because you have that collective. You have the herd. But that depends on if you're able to keep up with the herd. Does that make sense? Okay, great. If you can see... Alright, it depends on when you are, because I don't know where you are. If you can't see us, or a part of the herd, you should not be in the herd. River says, okay, another off topic. Once we get wildfire, I can't talk about wildfire until it's added, sorry. I don't know. I know as much as you guys about that. Wild Wyoming says, so if a female doesn't leave a slow juvie and falls behind, the herd won't be waiting. Nope, it will not. It'll keep going. It's her job. She determines. She's the final say. She can either stick with the group and the protection and all that stuff, because we are runners, yes. Females are runners. Males are fighters. If she's in the herd, she has like a what? I think there's like 20 females right now. 1 in 20 chance of being targeted by a hunt. If she's by herself, she has a 1-in-1 chance of being targeted for a hunt. It's that age-old analogy of, you know, the two hikers in the woods, and then one of the like they've run into a bear, and the bear roars and starts chasing after them, and they manage to get away, but they can hear the bear coming after them. So one hiker stops and changes into sneakers, and the other hiker's like, "Oh, what are you doing? We gotta run." And the guy says, "Oh, no, I don't need to outrun the bear. I just need to outrun you." That's Alamo. Alamo is outrun everyone else. You don't outrun the danger. You can't do that. You're too slow. And if you get caught, you can fight. But your goal is to outrun everyone else. That actually brings up a great question that I see, which is, all right, so I'm a guy and I get hunted. Who comes to my rescue? No, you're on your own. You're a fighter. We're runners. Bye-bye. But let's say the male comes near. It comes near the herd. Well, he's not necessarily he is danger in that he's bringing danger to the herd. So you would just want to run. Like, he's probably bleeding, he's hurt. That sort of thing. You just keep moving until you can't. Which also brings up an interesting point of, well, I'm an Alamo in a herd and my herd keeps getting followed. What do I do? At what point can I just say that's enough? Well, if they're being threatening, you can say, back off. No, they cannot do that. It is unrealistic for them to push the kids along. They either keep up or they don't. Like, accidents happen, right? But if it's becoming like a series of like, oh yeah, I keep hitting them in the direction we're going, then it's gonna get a little fishy. But yeah, so you can, if escape is not an option, you can stand your ground. Like, that's fine. You just prefer to get out of there first rather than seek conflict. Alright, so we've got about 20 minutes left. Are there any clarification questions that I can answer? Anything about the profile? And as always, my DMs are open. That's up to you. That's up to you to decide. It does seem like it's raining. Yes, if they're in front of the males, then they are the wall that keeps the matriarchy and the patriarchy separate. It's up to them to say, hey, 2 tail lengths, chop chop. Go in the pond to avoid getting their necks hit. I'd have to see it. River says, correct mate only happens when we migrate, not standing and doing. Yes. You only mate when you're migrating. If you're not migrating, you're not interested. Stopping is not a permanent thing. You only stop to have babies and rest and soak your feet. And if you don't get water here, there is water up ahead that's more infinite, so don't worry. It's all good. And this is an example of, ah, man, we drank the water. What do we do? How long do we stay? You move on. There's food. Yeah, so you eat what you can. You chew what you can, but you're already interested in leaving because there's no water. So this is also a good chance to let the herd catch up and do that sort of thing. It is a rest stop, but not a very long one. Mooney, you know what you're not supposed to do that. Don't talk in group chat. What? I'm gonna give you a reminder for now. But I'm gonna start handing out warnings. TJ Homeboy says, if we're at a limited source with our baby, can we act slightly aggressive? Yeah, why not? If they're worth it, you can be like, hey, get out of there. But I would recommend for females, maybe like a 1 call rather than a full-on 3 call. You're still like you're docile. You're not looking for a fight. You let the fight come to you. Frosty Lass says, would we cross the ocean water on our journeys, or would we? You can cross wherever. In fact, if you were in a herd I was leading, I would 100% take you across the ocean, because that's fun. It all depends. Like, I usually play it like, okay, where was I born? Because I definitely want to go back there. Where did I travel with my parents? Because I definitely want to go through that. Where have I traveled before? Because I'm definitely aware. And for my Alamo, I grew up on an island ocean, like an island in the ocean. So of course, like, yeah, I'd be like, I'm safe there. I know there's food. I lived there. That's actually a great question. So Teperu says, it says in the profile, new males may be pushed around until a new dominance hierarchy is established. What kind of hierarchy is that? So it's nothing that has like a set position, if that makes sense. So, you know, like in a wolf pack, they say like you got the breeding parents who are like quote unquote alphas and everyone else is underneath them. So the dominance hierarchy for males is just who do I get to push around? And it's just to help avoid conflict. So like, you know how bigger animals typically get what they want when they want? It's much like that. So if there's a dominance hierarchy and you have one male above the other, the more subordinate male may be more inclined to forgo food or challenge in order to ensure that he doesn't get hurt because that other guy is dominant. And that's another thing to keep in mind. You don't need to necessarily fight every challenge. Most animal challenges typically are resolved with posturing and not necessarily who's bigger, who's more assertive. And it's completely fine if you're less assertive. There's no prize to be had, if that makes sense. It doesn't mean you get more females. It doesn't mean that you are the only one who gets food. It means that you're more likely to win that contest if there is like a, hey, you and I are going for the same thing. Z-Mom says, are sister wives most likely to be social with each other? I could see that, yeah, absolutely. Females in general are very social. They are more likely to hang out with each other, more likely to be collaborative than their male counterparts, so I could absolutely see them having a closer bond. Because, like, once again, socially intelligent. River says, so if two males are running to the same female for mating, do the males have to fight if they're the same speed? It's a race to see who gets there first, and if you're both the same speed, you're gonna have to trip each other. You know, you're gonna have to hold the rope out as they're running and turn in the corner, sort of thing. The whipping is pretty good because it's also demonstrates, alright, is this female really worth me getting hurt over? Because if she's not, and so is the female worth me potentially getting hurt? Because what if a guy comes around the corner? Where is Mbug's question? Sorry, Emma, could you post it again? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, what did Wilra say? Wilra said, Apatos are polygamous weak. Does it mean, yes, his goal is to make a harem. It says many females as he can catch. And if he can catch multiple females, by Jove, go for it. But in having multiple females and not sealing the deal, you risk not sealing the deal. Like, you risk someone else coming in and doing it. Yeah, thank you, Mbug. Your question was, as a male, what do I do if several straggling females are falling behind the mat? Does the pat form behind the main harem? It depends. If they're so far away, you know, that they're prioritizing the kid over them being with the rest of the herd, then you might push past them. But generally speaking, you want to be behind the matriarchy, no matter how far it spreads. Mercy Reala says, what if the two males won't back down from each other? Well, yeah, that's up to you to determine. Or is she worth dying for? No, most of the time the answer is no, but you know what? You make that decision. If it means having a dead Apato, that's what you decided. You decided, like, yeah, she's worth it. She's worth it. Alright, so River says, what if one male isn't slapping back and is catching up the female side? Does it mean he's giving up, or he's just tanking the hit so he won't? Well, that can depend. If he's ignoring your challenge, you keep whipping him. If he's not making any calls, like to call, like, hey, I'm good, stop, then he's still in it. He hasn't tapped out yet, so you just keep going for it. As a male, what do I do if several strike? Oh yeah, I read that. Frosty Last says, what would females be more inclined to take the same male or different males? Depends on who catches up to her first. That's all that matters. Z says, part of what I'm seeing is that those without kids are just gone. Well, oh, hang on. Ooh, hang on. While those are are stopping often to feed, so are getting further and further behind. In this case, where it isn't about them being, but just that, well, the thing is, if a female is stopping to get food, and she might not have a kid, then she's doing that of her own volition. As long as you can see at least one part of the herd, you can still be in it. But if she's stopping for her kid because her kid's not able to keep up, then she's making that choice. Mercy Urala says, with regard to baby snatcher, can we just hit them if they grab a kid? Or do we? No, if they're grabbing your kid, you can hit them. Mbug says, also, what is defined as an unintended? Okay, if the mom can't hit you, if she can't get there in time to prevent what's about to happen, then that's unattended. Z says a lot of females with high GP are just carrying them most of the way. Well, that's part of. You can consider that as part of like evolution to some extent. The females that are able to carry their kids are able to get a little bit further. You know, they're able to help their kids survive longer to pass on their genes. That's nature. Firewolf says, is a male allowed to stay back with females if they are just a tad further behind? I would need to see it to tell you that, because like there's lots of different factors that can go into it, and I'd hate to make a blanket statement. But those that have less GP are more likely to abandon their kid. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. If we had been able to stay until the kids were 0.4, it would have been much easier. But that's part of the Apato life. If there's no food, you move on. And then you see who catches up. It's life. It's the thrill of the fight for survival. Firewolf says, I think that other comment is clarification or expository. If you're in LS, you should be okay. Is the blue Apato looks at moss a good thing if you are not Aquapato? As long as it's realistic. As long as you're not neon, you can be whatever you'd like. Yeah, no worries, I got you. River says, IDK if this is only one happening to me, but if a baby Apato is adopted by its mother, would the male assume that it's a mother child? That's tough, because at what point does that become KFS versus resetting a timer? Because obviously if there's no female to reset the timer, then that's just killing for the sake of killing. I say that it's a natural assumption to make, like if, oh hey, that's a kid, and it's with a mom, therefore it must be her kid. Like, I would not fault you for thinking that that was her kid, even if it wasn't. And that's where clarification can come into play, like, hey, that's not mine, and it helps. Casa says, I feel like GP would be an easy way to show motherhood. More GP means... careful with the comments. Is that a question or is that a comment, Casa? Does adoption mean you can't nest? You're taking care of something. So, let's see. River says, like people would say, check them. Yeah, no, I understand that. I completely understand. Alright, please keep your comments to a minimum. Like, I don't know how many more times I have to say. I'm sorry. Like, I keep asking. I understand thinking like, oh, it's on topic, but nah. I'm here to answer the questions, so there's no miscommunication and no mix-ups of any kind, you know, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and everyone has fun on Alamo. Because, like, look at us! Guys, take a look around you. We're a bona fide herd, we're a squad. Can babies smack each other in a playful way? You mean with a tail whip? I would advise against it. You can play in other ways that don't involve smacking people. Say a male and a female group together, would the female be less... Yeah, I could see that. They're socially intelligent. Like at Reds, they would be more likely to hang out at these rest stops because they can't travel together, but they can hang out. Rise says, if a herd is just one male and one female, would they travel? No. If it's a herd, then they will have matriarchy and patriarchy. Male will always travel behind female, no matter the numbers. I think that we have reached our final destination. Yay! Alright, go for it, Firewolf. What's your question? Am I allowed to get on these rocks to log? Well, up to you to decide if you can get back down. I would recommend, by the way, just saying like, question, and just give your question instead of asking. Because I'm here to answer your questions. Like, I'm here. Say the male and female again grew up together and have a very close relationship. Would the female with the male near her well, no matter how close that bond, those kids are in the way of him having a happily ever after with you. A temporary happily ever after. So she can learn that the hard way. Like RP wise, yeah. I mean, like she might be like, oh good, I want to hang out with this guy that I grew up with. He's super cool. But he might not be the same, you know, like he's still a bull. He's not gonna change his behavior towards her kids. Like he has the relationship with her, not her children. What if the female thinks that is her brother? I mean, her brother's still gonna smash kids. It's unrelated. If he get, like, you know, in the wild, sometimes, that sort of thing happens. Sometimes the urge to mate overcomes you know, that aspect of, incestual relationship. So if he has a shot, he's gonna take it. You know, if he has a potential to get in there and have kids, he will. Alright, so this is the closing time. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I see some people on the horizon coming in. Do we have any wrap-up questions? Anything you'd like to ask? Go for it. Destroy all the trees to your heart's content. We are in the wrap-up phase. I haven't adjourned yet. I think in the upcoming weeks there will be, I'll be hosting an Alamo dress rehearsal, so practice what you learned today. The video for this is gonna be coming up. So it will be posted unedited. Raw footage will be in the cinematography. You can check there. An edited video, quick reference will be coming up. Everyone, the class has not been adjourned. Please do not use group chat still. Just keep it for questions if you would. I'll let you guys do whatever you'd like in a couple minutes, but I'm just asking if there's any clarifying questions. I'm just asking for wrap-up questions. If there are no questions, we can call it a day. Awesome. Okay, well, in that case, you guys are free to stay in group and migrate as you so desire. Group chat's free now. I will be clearing out the voice. Wait. Mouse says, so if you spawn in group is nowhere to be found, what are you supposed to do as a male? You leave group, and then you have to find them. That's how it be. You're fine with group chat rules now. Like, I'm releasing it to you. Migrate and be free. Yeah, I'm glad you, if you have suggestions for any other class, that'd be great. I'm hoping to host a series on stuff that I helped to write. So that would be Alamo, Psy / Anki, and Irritator. I think that would best be done by Panda. May Gorgo might be interesting. Yeah, I can see it. Uh-oh, Issa, you got a racing stripe there. You might want to change that down a little bit. Okay, Wild Wyoming says, IDK, that whole group separation thing seems pretty chaotic. Babies were slowing down the matriarchy, but the males were pushing ahead. Alright, if the males... Alright, so remember, babies set the pace. Females then set the pace. Then males abide by that pace. But the thing is, if the babies are too slow, then the males will probably just push around you. But that's if you are causing them to be too far behind. You want to maintain that 2 tail lengths regardless. That's how you have the intermediate zone. If there's no intermediate zone, there's no mating, and you can only mate during migration. Right, I think one of the reasons why is because, you know, the babies were very small. If a slow baby is causing the hurt, causing you as a mom to get too far away from the matriarchy, you would abandon them. You want to keep pace with the rest of the girls. Even if that's your one kid, it's just, you know, it's not personal, it's just business. So how long, Mouse says, so how long does the herd standard stay in a set location? It depends. You're not there forever. When the food runs out or the water runs out is usually when you go. If it's at an infinite water source, it's probably going to be the food long before the water. I think that today was a great example of why it's an interesting component to wait until you're 0.4 to start migrating, because then you have that stall. You know, you have that like... If you have any other questions regarding that, let me know. You know, I understand the separation is probably one of the most important things that tends to get addressed in assistance questions. So the official length is 2 tail lengths. 2 tail lengths away. If you're not there, then you can't mate. Is it an option to have the male make a group nest for all the ladies he has? What do you mean? Like, he should be putting down nests for everyone. A nesting post? I think it's 1 per. 1 mom, 1 dad. And that's how it works. So it's separate. And then I think generally it's the female that has to make the post. But alright, guys, I think we're all Gucci here. If you have questions, send me a DM. Let me know. I will see you on the flippity flop.